Hi and welcome to the Mum Boss Method podcast. I'm Chrissy Hiller, I'm the Mum Boss, but you should know that already. Today I want to talk about McDonald's or no. And this isn't a debate about the ethics of McDonald's or whether I like the food. This has come from a question from one of my clients this week in check-in. And she said to me that in half term, she has an outing arranged with some other mums and their children and her children, and they are doing an activity and then they're going to McDonald's, and she's torn. She's torn between should she go for the sensible option, and I'm doing that in bunny ear quotes, of a chicken wrap, or should she go with what she really wants, which I think off the top of my head was a double quarter pounder with cheese. And I thought this was a really interesting question, and also brought up lots of kind of thoughts around the way that we approach dieting, the way that we approach eating, and how you might choose to answer this. Now, and there's lots of ways, and I'm going to come on to kind of the advice that I gave my client shortly, but I want to first kind of talk about this restriction mindset, okay? Because so often when you are trying to lose body fat, you go into restriction mode. So you go to, I need to give up all of these things. And that might be chocolate, it might be wine, it might be crisps, it might be McDonald's, it might be takeaways in general, it might be pizza. You're making this mental list of all the things that you're not going to have, sugar, sweets, whatever. I'm not going to have these things. And what that does is, by putting those things on this banned list, what that does is it creates this restriction in our mind. We're already telling ourselves we are being restricted from this whole list of food, and if we dare to eat that food, we are bad and moving away from our diet and our goals. And the problem with that is you might last a week on that, you might last 2 weeks on that, but actually what's going to happen is, because you're not including the things that you enjoy in your diet, at some point you are going to just eat the double quarter pounder with cheese and the milkshake and the McFlurry and the large chips and half of the kids' chicken nuggets, and you might not stop there. Okay. And then what happens is it's not just that. And it should be just that, and we'll come to that in a second. It should just be that. But then you think to yourself, oh, well, I've stuffed it now, haven't I? I've ruined it. I've eaten the McDonald's. So that's it. I may as well carry on for the rest of the week. My client, Katie, she's going to McDonald's on Tuesday. So she, if we're using this as an example, she could go for the quarter pounder with cheese and the McFlurry and the milkshake and the chips and the chicken nuggets, and then mentally think, well, that's it, I've screwed it. So, and it's half term, so I will just spend the next 5 days eating what I want because I've ruined it with that one McDonald's. And this is the problem. The restriction creates those barriers in the brain, and also means we don't enjoy our food because we're not eating anything that we particularly like, or not that we don't like, because I always encourage that you eat food that you like, but you're not eating the things, the 20% that brings you joy. So you then dive into the McDonald's head first and then hit the button and you carry on. And, you might pull yourself out of that 4 days later. You might pull yourself a week out of that a week later. You might not. You might just think, oh, well, obviously I can't do this. So it's not ever the meal, it's the response to the meal. It's the response to the choice that we make. and the response comes from our mindset, and the mindset comes from the fact we've restricted ourselves in the first place. So you can see we're creating this vicious negative cycle and pattern, and we don't want that. We want to create positive patterns. And so the way that I spoke to my client about this, and obviously I know, what goes on in her life. She's quite a social person. She's often quite busy. She's often and she enjoys a takeaway once a week, and she goes out for lunches and dinners and stuff, which is great, because when you work with me, we don't ban things, we don't restrict things, because you can't stick to that. But what I said to her was, think about this in the context of your week. How does the rest of your week look? Because so this is going on Tuesday, but if the Saturday before you're going out for a really nice meal with the hubby or with friends, and you might want a couple of glasses of wine, and they do a really good steak in that steak and chips in that restaurant, and so you want the steak and chips, and then on Wednesday you've got lunch out with the kids and some more friends, but you're going to, I don't know, the Pancake House or the Waffle House. I'm using a restaurant that I know she's been to, the Waffle House, and actually that's, you really like the banana and cream waffle. And then on Friday, you're going to have your regular takeaway because it's a really busy day and you won't want to cook. Well, in the context of that, what are the things that you're most going to enjoy and that you most want to be included in your 20% of the 80-20 rule, right? The 80-20 rule is, 80 to 85% of your food should be nutritious. It should be high protein. It should be lots of fruit and veg. It should be on the lower calorie end of the scale, and the other 15 to 20% can be the things that you enjoy. Well, if you've got that kind of week where it's really busy and there's lots of meals out, what are you going to compromise on? Are you going to compromise on not having the steak and chips at the really nice steak restaurant so that you can have the McDonald's? And if that's what you want, because the McDonald's means more to you than the really nice steak and chips, or means more to you than the waffles, or means more to you than the Friday night takeaway, then by all means have the McDonald's. But we need to stop being so narrow and looking at things in, worrying about every tiny little detail, and step back and zoom out a little bit and look at the context of the whole week and what's going on in that whole week. And you can apply this to everything, okay? So one of the things I've been talking about recently is, obviously it's getting darker earlier, it's staying darker later in the morning. It's a lot harder to get out for a walk and get your steps in, because it's not safe to be walking around on your own. If you've got someone to walk with, great, but it's not safe to be walking around on your own. And the fact that we even have to think about that is a different story, but it's not safe for you to be doing that. So we need to look at this in the context of, okay, well, where do I have a little bit more space and time to get a walk in during the day where I am safe? On Friday, maybe it's not as busy a day. I can probably get out for a half-hour walk in my lunch break. I know I can and will definitely do more steps at the weekend because I'm not constricted by work. Great. So maybe I need to lower my expectation of not getting my normal 10k steps or 8k steps Monday to Friday, and my top end will be 8k, and then at the weekend I can try and do a few more steps to try and make up for that. It's not optimal. Actually, I'd like to be getting 10k every day. It's not optimal to kind of bank them all at the weekend, but it's winter, the weather is miserable, I want to be safe, I don't want to be stressed, I don't want this to have a negative impact on me, law of diminishing returns. So actually, I'm going to try and front load all of my steps at the weekend, or back load all of my steps at the weekend, and then take the pressure off during the week. Okay. And just going back to that law of diminishing returns, if you've not heard of that, that's where, the actions you take, the effort it requires for you to take those actions actually takes away from the impact of taking the actions. So to go to use the steps, for me in the winter to get 15,000 steps a day, every day, would mean that I have to field walk Henry 2 or 3 times a day. And in order to field walk Henry 2 or 3 times a day during the winter, I would need, in order to fit that into my working day and my family life, I would need to be walking him when it is dark, and likely on my own at least one of those times. The law of diminishing return there is, well, actually I'm putting myself at risk by doing that. So I'm not going to do that. But also, even if I think about walking him 3 times a day in the light, because the weather is so bad, that means I would need to probably be showering him every day. And that then adds another 10 minutes onto every single walk that I do with him. So a 30-minute walk turns into a 40-minute walk, because I then have to shower him. So actually, whilst I'm then getting to my 15,000 steps, the diminishing return is it's taking me longer and probably going to stress me out, because I'm going to have a muddy dog 3 times a day. And you can then apply that to the food example, to the McDonald's example. Okay, so I want to eat 80% nutritious food. And this is what I said to Katie, because the other point that she made that I didn't mention at the beginning was, I don't want to be that person that turns up to McDonald's with my own food. And no one wants to be that person. You don't want a whole bunch of kids asking why you've got Tupperware in a McDonald's. You also, there's some of them are not your children. So talking about diet and exercise is not appropriate. How you talk to your own kids about that is up to you, but talking to other people's children about that is not appropriate. And it's also just awkward. So by trying to meet your 80% by taking Tupperware to McDonald's, that's actually going to create a negative outcome. So if McDonald's is not, your priority, and the steak and chips on Saturday and the takeaway and the pancakes are your priority, go with the chicken wrap. And my client, has now looked at her plans and will make her decision based on her plans. Now, her plans might change between now and Tuesday, because I'm recording this on a Thursday. This podcast will come out on Monday, and then she's going to McDonald's on Tuesday. It doesn't matter what she's decided now, because it could be that she gets invited out for a slap-up roast dinner as well on Sunday. So, but the point is, you're giving yourself those options, and you're applying kind of these thought processes and these decisions in the context of your whole week to help you with the decision. And the fact that she's even thinking about this, because she presented me with this at the beginning of the week, so she's thinking about this a week ahead of time. Like, this is all progress. But the final point I want to talk to you about is, I've said about this 80-20 rule, and I talk to my clients, and I talk to you about consistency often. So, the way that you lose body fat is by being in a calorie deficit consistently. Okay, and consistency for me is not perfection. We do not go for perfection. What I want you to be consistent about 85% of the time, right? 80, 85, 90% of the time, leaving like 10 to 20% of leeway. Brilliant. We love that. But what I want you to understand is this point around compromise, not sacrifice. So I gave some feedback to an ex-client today who filled in my form, which helps you to find out why you're not losing weight. And we've worked together before, almost a year ago now, and unsurprisingly, what I saw in her form are the same things that we worked together on nearly a year ago now. This is a perfect example of why I don't run my 4-week program anymore. If you want to work with me, the minimum you should really think about working with me is for 3 months. So you can join my group program and you can sign up for the first 6 weeks. But what I always say to people is you should really commit to at least 3 months mentally, because it takes longer than 4 or 6 weeks to change your behaviours and really cement them. So I was giving feedback to this lovely lady today, and she said to me that she's really good Monday to Friday, and then it gets to the weekend, she gives herself no accountability, she hits the button, she goes mad. It normally involves alcohol. And what I can see here is this really restrictive Monday to Friday, so restrictive, and then she just goes wild at the weekend. But what I can also see is this example of she's sacrificing all the things that she enjoys Monday to Friday, so she cannot help but hit the button Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. When in fact, if you could apply this rule of compromise versus sacrifice and apply that to your whole week, and as some practical examples, that might look like not completely banning yourself from wine, but maybe you just have a couple of glasses once a week rather than a bottle and a half, 2 bottles a couple of times a week. Compromise might look like I'm going out for dinner on Saturday and I'm going to pick 2 from a starter, a main, a dessert and a glass of wine. I'm not going to have all 4. I'm going to have 2 out of those 4. Compromise might look like I am going to forego sitting up and watching this Netflix series that I'm addicted to at the moment and go to bed at 10:30, but I'm going to allow myself 1 episode, but I'm going to stop at 1. Another compromise another of my clients has come up with by herself. So she's a sofa snacker, and she loves to just sit on the sofa and snack, but once she starts she can't stop. So she's given herself this compromise and this rule of I'm not going to snack on the sofa. If I want a snack, I can have a snack, but I have to go and sit at the dining room table and have it. Now, she is not going to sit at the dining room table and eat a packet of popcorn or some chocolate biscuits. Like the habit for her, the enjoyment for her is just sitting on the sofa and eating that whilst watching TV. It's mindless eating. So when you can apply this compromise versus sacrifice, so step out of the restriction mindset and stop telling yourself you have to sacrifice these things, but you do need to compromise. I've said this before. We all want to have the body and the life and the health we want, but we also want to have the life that gives us loads and loads of fun. We all want to be able to eat what we want and drink what we want and move how we want every day, but still have the body we want. And if the food and drink aspect of that is that you want to eat takeaway every night and you want to drink wine every night and you want to eat chocolate every day and you want to, all of that stuff, eat takeaways 4 times a week, the likelihood is you are not going to have the body that you want. You need to create some compromise. Okay, you need to create some compromise. You can't have both. So that's where this comes from. And this talking about compromise is another way of saying creating that balanced life. Okay, that compromise is that way of creating balance. So yes, you can still have the things you want and do the things you want and be social, but those things won't enjoy unlimited glasses of wine and unlimited bags of crisps and unlimited McDonald's and unlimited bars of chocolate. And switching that mindset is really quite tricky sometimes, but it's key. And so sometimes to people, I have to be quite blunt about it and say, well, what do you want? Do you want to look a certain way and fit in a certain size of clothes and have the things you want, you know, more energy and be a good role model to your children and feel more comfortable in your clothes and feel more attractive and feel more confident? Or do you want to live the life you're currently living, eating the way you are, drinking the way you are, moving or not moving the way you're currently moving or not moving? You know, that's the choice, that's the payoff, because, you know, I promise you that you can't have both. And even if there are people in your life that you look at and you think, but they seem to have both. There's a I don't know if you know Louisa Zisman. Okay, she was on The Apprentice, she was in Big Brother, she does Luana the podcast. She's hilarious. She works out quite a lot. She's very lean and she's recently lost quite a lot of body fat. Now, if you look at her Instagram shows this kind of celebrity lifestyle. She appears to drink quite a lot. I don't often see Instagram of her eating, but she appears to have this very social life. She's quite wealthy and all of that. You just see a very small slice of her life. Okay, what we don't see is, I know she does about 30,000 steps a day. I know she has a private PT that she sees between 3 and 5 times a week. She horse rides. You know, I also happen to know, because I listen to her podcast, she doesn't have a completely healthy attitude towards food. But that's another thing. So I would imagine that whilst, you know, it looks like she's living this champagne lifestyle, I would imagine she probably doesn't eat a huge amount. And so whatever she's doing, she is eating at maintenance calories. But the things we see on her Instagram, it looks like she is drunk 3 times a week on, she likes tequila. You know, you might have those people in your life that you think, people say it to me, Chrissy, how do you... You know, it's all right for you. You can eat and drink what you want. No, I can't. If I eat over my maintenance calories, I will gain body fat. It's just that I am very active. I know my portion sizes. I know what my kind of calorie allowance is. I know how much I need to move in order to stay the way I am. And that's what I do. And I know how to build my meals so I can eat quite a lot. I've kind of gone off on one, haven't I? So the point of this is that McDonald's isn't banned, but you do need to look at the context of your whole week. You do need, and this is why planning is so important, and looking at what's going on in the rest of your week is so important, and stepping away from that restriction mindset. So don't ban yourself from the things you love, but learn to enjoy them with compromise, with balance. And I promise you, if you can do that, you will enjoy it so much more. You will enjoy those foods, those treats, those drinks, those social occasions so much more if you put a bit of a limit on them, if you have them in moderation. Okay, if you ate a takeaway every night of the week, you wouldn't enjoy it. Eventually you wouldn't enjoy it. You might enjoy not having to cook it, but you wouldn't enjoy it. And that's what applying compromise is. Okay, so I just thought I'd share that. Katie requested I record this podcast. I thought it was a great topic. So Katie, I hope that you're happy with what I've talked about. If you would like help with weight loss, with prioritising yourself, with making more time for yourself by your own self-care, and you are interested in finding out more about my coaching, please do get in touch. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook at The Mum Boss Method or Chrissy Hiller, and you can find me on my website, themumbossmethod.com. I run 2 coaching programs, a group one and a one-to-one coaching program, and I would love to have you there. In fact, my Christmas countdown group coaching program starts at the end of October, so do come and check it out and get in touch. I will see you very soon. I'm going to a boxing class now with my son. Have an awesome week. See you later.